So we're really honored to have you all here today to join this town hall with retired Marine Corps Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart. Super excited to have you here today, sir. It's a pleasure. As a fellow Marine, I'm excited for all the value that you're going to bring to our audience. For our listeners today, I'm going to go ahead and ask you just to make sure that you submit your questions in the Q&A. We'll have an opportunity for you to submit questions throughout the chat, and I'll be going ahead and engaging you all there. We have time at the end. We'll go ahead and submit your questions to Lieutenant General Stewart and Todd Connor. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator today. Many of you might know him as the founder of Bunker Labs, the Collective Academy, and the new soon-to-be-released book, Third Shift Entrepreneur, Mr. Todd Connor. Todd, take it from here.
Mike, thank you, brother. It's so good to be with you, Mike, as always. And by the way, if you are not listening to Mike Stebbins' podcast, Native Son, you got to get on that. It's my privilege to have this conversation today with someone who I've gotten to know recently and really admire and enjoy. I'm going to read General Stewart's, a couple of his highlights, but just to sort of set the stage for the conversation. He was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and attended Kingston College before coming to the United States in 1971 at the age of 13. Received his undergraduate degree in 1981 from Illinois Wesleyan, commissioned in the United States Marine Corps same year, and did all those things that Marines do, including attend the basic school in Quantico, Virginia. He had a long and distinguished career, and I could go sort of on, and I won't, but lots of things that he's done over the course of his career, having retired in 2019 with his last job after having led the Marine Forces Cyber Command to become the director of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, obviously retiring as a 3-star general. So we have a extraordinary panelist with us today. He's also getting involved with Bunker Labs and at the board and oversight level. And so we're really honored to have him here. I'm also most excited perhaps about his current chapter in life, which is as an entrepreneur and business owner, having retired from the Marine Corps and jumped into, not one to let grass grow under his feet, jumped into starting his own business. So Vince, thank you so much for being with us and welcome.
Hey Todd, it's great to be here and ready to take on our questioners, but I've got a question for all the folks out there. We got involved through diversity and inclusion conversation that came out of the death of George Floyd. And as I've kind of refined how I interact with folks, I've come up with a question that seems to cause people to think. So I'm going to throw it out there. Perfect. I see we got about 26 participants. I wish we had 2 million participants because I'm going to get this question out. If I told you that in the morning you are going to be an African American, how would you feel about that? What would you do tonight? What would you do first thing in the morning? And this the first part of the question, obviously addressed to a white audience. If I told you, how would you feel if I told you that you were going to be an African American in the morning? And no, you won't be Michael Jordan. You won't be Tiger Woods. You won't be any prominent. You're just going to be some black dude. What would go through your head at that moment? Same question for our other demographics, our African American. If I told you that in the morning you're going to be white, how would you feel? What would you do tonight? What would be the first thing you'd do in the morning? And the answer to that question, and you don't have to share that answer with me, clearly this is a very personal thing, but the answer doesn't necessarily mean that you're racist. The answer may just mean, oh, I never thought of that, or holy crap, I wouldn't want to be in that situation, or yeah, absolutely, I'd embrace it. So the answer to the question doesn't mean that you've got a racial or bigotry but hopefully it makes people go, I don't know that I would want that. Okay, if you wouldn't want that, then why? Or if you embraced it completely, then why? Because that says how you interact with people. That says your perception of one is superior, inferior, equal to, or whatever. And so I'm hoping that question drives into the head of folks and go, I don't know if I would either want that or I would reject that. Okay, so let's set that aside.
Mm.
Now, if as we started the conversation about diversity, the issue then, and this is the conversation I was just having with one of the senior military leaders, is how does diversity help your organization? Does diversity make you a better warfighter? Does diversity improve your ability to find and close with and destroy the enemy by fire in close combat? Or is it just, it looks a little bit better? Because the whole idea of, and I won't get into the story because we did that once before, the whole idea is, what does the whole diversity conversation do to improve the output, the outcomes of your organization? Does it make your organization stronger because it has diversity of ideas, diversity of issues, different perspective on how you look at your organization? Blind spots that we all have where we just go, I've always done it X way and therefore I've been successful. Even though it's been painful being successful, I've always done it that way. To have someone else who came from a different angle and say, well, if you'd only tweak this portion of your business, it would resonate with a much greater population. It would generate greater revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole issue now is not just about the racial inequality, the racial justice. The real issue is, how do you build an organization that will be inclusive of ideas, inclusive of approaches, ready to shift as the environment shifts, and therefore take a dominant place in the business, whatever that business line is, because you offer something that truly differentiates you from your customers. And among the things that I see now in so much of what I do is folks are just copying the old model, putting the old model online and thinking, okay, I moved it online, therefore it'll be successful. So in trying to be an entrepreneur, I am learning an awful lot about the failures of people and trying to see how quickly I can adapt to the environment and how quickly I can bring my workforce around to the environment, because it's really quite remarkable that even the young workforce that you'd think would be really progressive have simply gone back to the old ways and saying, okay, now let's put it online. Now, Todd, I can talk about any number of areas, including recounting the George Floyd thing, where we can stop there and just take questions.
Well, this is great. I want to pick up on this, and we'll open up for questions and get some dialogue. But I'd like to get your assessment of how's, sort of a two-part question. One is, what's your assessment as to how the military is doing as it relates to this conversation of diversity? Yeah. And you've been public with some pieces in Task and Purpose and other places. Do you find now that you've stepped out of the military, that you've retired, that you've got more of a voice? Or just talk to us about what's different from when you wore the uniform to what you're able to do today.
First thing is, folks have said how courageous, air quotes, courageous writing. There was nothing courageous about writing it. It was difficult to write, but it wasn't courageous because I had nothing to lose. No one was going to fire me. No one was going to strip me of my rank. No one was going to deny me opportunities because they objected. So those are the things that would have been courageous. If I had been in uniform and said, this is how I feel, I'm taking my uniform off, to hell with it, let's get on with it. It was difficult. And the most difficult part of the writing of that and recounting the story is, in spite of what I went through, I couldn't protect my children. And I couldn't guarantee that I could protect my grandchildren. I have 15 grandchildren. Youngest one is a almost 2-year-old girl, and she could be seeing the same things, the same kind of institutional bias, institutional racism that I experienced. It has gotten better, make no mistake, but the psychological impact of being viewed as a shoplifter every time you enter a store has a profound impact on you. And sometimes people are looking at you because they think you're interesting to look at, but because of the enduring psychological impact of being accused or being considered a suspect, You now take on they're looking at me because they think I'm going to shoplift, and they might not even have that in mind. So there's an impact. Now, the military is doing very well on the enlisted side. I can have no complaint when you look across the rank, the numbers are right, the senior leadership on the enlisted side is right. It is not the case in the officer rank. And there's a couple different reasons, I suspect. One, that everybody goes to immediately, we don't recruit enough. So the base is not broad enough in order to get, just through natural attrition, getting the right numbers at the top of the pyramid. That's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is, in many cases, if you don't go into in the Marine Corps, if you don't go into the combat arms, if you're not infantry, if you're not artillery, if you're not aviation, you're probably not going to get to the top of the pyramid. So how do we get a diverse group into those combat arms MOS's skill sets so that they can, in fact, have an opportunity? Some of that, again, is on the side of the demographic, the quote, disadvantaged minority, because I want to have in my resume that I served in the Marine Corps, but I also want a transferable skill if I don't make it in the Marine Corps. Being an armor officer is not a really good transferable skill. You know, a heavy equipment operator, that's okay. I don't need to go to university to get that. So you see a number of folks of color going into intelligence or communications or cyber or those things that if they leave for whatever reason, they can put that on their resume and be very attractive on the outside. And then the third area is we're not very purposeful in retaining those people that we have value in or find valuable and see their potential. So we think organically folks will just hang around. And just had a conversation again. African-American aviator, did everything, had the department head, was commanding a squadron, absolutely going all the way. Decided he's going to leave the Marine Corps, and no one asked him why and what it would take to keep him in. So we have to be purposeful. We can't let any of the folks we value leave the Corps. So on the officer side, and I think you can take that and flip it to the Army or the Air Force. It's just not purposeful.
Let me ask a personal question. Why did you stay? And what was your key to the success that you had throughout your long career?
I loved the challenges that the Marine Corps gave me. I didn't know, let's start, first of all, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with a history major. So as I looked around, I thought, okay, I got a history major. I better go find my intent was to serve in the Marine Corps for 3 or 4 years and then get out and do something else. And the Marine Corps kept giving me command opportunities, which I loved because I generally like people. I like training folks. I always wanted to demand more of them than they thought possible, and watch their reaction when they achieved it. And they just there was just a great joy in going, no, you can in fact jump 6 feet. No, I can't. Let's train. Let's prep. Holy cow! I just jumped 6.5 feet and just watched them light up. So the Marine Corps gave me great command opportunities. Before I knew it, I was at the 10.5-year mark, and I told my battalion commander I was getting out. He said, you're halfway there. Just do another 9 years and you'll get a retirement. And I said, okay. And then he got me another great job and got me school. And before I knew it, it was 20 years and just kept going. But the challenges that we had, and it was much like when I joined the Marine Corps, I went to Army ROTC at Fort Knox, Kentucky for 6 weeks and thought it was interesting. We did some cool Boy Scout stuff. And I took 2 weeks off and went to the Marine Corps Officer Candidate School, and they kicked my ass. They beat the hell out of me, so that at the end of the day, I didn't think I was going to make it another day. But I wasn't going to quit. They were going to have to throw me out. I wasn't going to quit. And got up the next morning, sort of refreshed, did it again. And each day I felt bigger and stronger and more committed to the team, and came back and signed my contract. And they gave me $100 a month that I could drink beer. So that life was good. But it was just the challenges that kept me going. And before I knew it, I was at 30 years. And And that's the story.
Mm. So at 30 years, you're thinking about, some people I suppose would sort of just slip into retirement at that point. How are you thinking about what you wanted your life to be after the Marine Corps? And then we'll talk about
Yeah.
the business you started.
So at the 30-year mark, I guess I was the brand new brigadier general, and I worked for a guy named Joe Dunford, General Dunford, who wanted me to do some things as the director of Intel. And he said he wasn't going to let me go until we got irreversible momentum on some of the things we started. So that gave me another 4 years. And then again, the Marine Corps said, we'll promote you, we'll give you a second star. We're going to put you at Marine Forces Cyber. And that was the cutting edge at the time. And so off I went to Cyber. And then they threw my name in the hat to be the director of DIA. We'd never had an Intel guy make 3 stars and run one of the agencies. So I jumped on that one. And then we had kind of we were looking at what was going to happen when Cyber Command separated from NSA. So I went up there to be the deputy commander and be in a position where I could compete for those jobs. And but I got to 38 years, and I thought I was watching my friends at my age die suddenly. Folks were showing up one day looking good, next day they had cancer. Some guy shows up one day, and the next day you get a call saying he died in his sleep. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not spending enough time with my family. I'm not doing some of the things that I would love to do. And the dirty little secret is that if there was anything courageous that I did was when I left, because I did not want to be involved in some of the things that were going on. And I'm failing in retirement because I've taken on more work than I had before. I'm not spending.
You just retired in March, right? I think it's worth noting last March.
Actually, it's been a little over a year, April of 19. Mm-hmm. So I retired. My ceremony was on the 5th of April. I went to work with an organization on the 8th of April. So I took the whole weekend off. I think many of the organizations found out that if they said in their pitch to me, "We support our veterans," I probably signed up with them.
Mm-hmm. Which we appreciate. So how do you come to start a business after that long career? And what's that like day one when you realize you don't have, a chauffeur and extensive staff? And
yeah, it's pretty bad day one when I got in the back of the Suburban and nothing happened. Because there was that's an old General Alexander, but I got a call from the former director of national intelligence, Director Clapper, and we're chatting along. And he goes, "Hey, you really got to check out this thing called Global Entry. It's really cool stuff." And I'm going, "Yeah, unlike you, DNI, I didn't have my own airplane. I know what Global Entry is." And but it's very different. I probably miss the person I miss the most is my enlisted aide, because my enlisted aide prepared all my meals and he ensured that I ate right instead of the stuff that I do now where I just eat because it's there. But starting a business, I didn't have a clue. I knew folks talked about you got to create an LLC. I didn't know what an LLC was, so I went on LegalZoom and then they started asking questions. Is it a C Corp? Is it an S Corp? Is it an LLP? What's the basic that I've got to do just to get something started? And then setting up a business account. I was very fortunate. I got a nice retainer from a company that gave me some cash to manage the business. Had I not done that, I would have had to break out my credit card and get the business going, which would have been horrible. I had one thing in mind that was going to be pretty small to start with. My great fear was that I would bring people on because my vision was big and I couldn't make payroll. And I never wanted to walk in the door and go, "Okay, guys, here's a box of donuts. I didn't make payroll, and maybe next month or 6 months from now." So I kept it pretty clean. Mrs. Stewart was the CFO and my admin assistant. So she did all the scheduling and then looked to see where any money was coming in from. And then we started very slowly. Just here's an idea that I believe in. Here's a group of people who run this organization in which the idea that I believe in exists. Let's have a conversation how we partner together. And for the most part, taking it from an advisory standpoint, a consulting standpoint, many of these guys, and I know this, they wanted my name and my reputation and my contacts to get them in the door. So I had to be very careful that I wasn't taking on something that would sully my reputation. So, and the other thing that drove for me the conversation is, how do I build generational wealth for my family? So I never wanted my grandchildren to want to go to Princeton and just couldn't afford it. I wanted them to have that choice. So I took some gambles on stock options in these companies that I supported. Now, if it turns out to be the next Uber, life is wonderful. If it turns out to be Palm Pilot or whatever that device was 100 years ago, then not so good. So very slowly, finding organizations that I believed in, and I guess it's different consulting than it is delivering a service or a product. The service or a product is based on the organizations that I advise and consult. And then quite maybe an advantage of being a retired three-star is people came at me. Some of the big companies came at me and said, we want you to consult. We want you to be on our board. And so we use that to build a network of venture capital, private equity companies, startup companies, consulting with some of the bigs, advising with some of the intermediate, and doing that both on the international and the domestic stage. And we're doing okay. Now, I'm about to walk away from all of that because I joined a company called Ankura, Nkura. And Ankura was one of those companies I was consulting for. And they came at me and offered me an opportunity to be a full-time member of their organization. And so I'm going to work their business intelligence and their cybersecurity line and help them with innovative ideas. And we'll see how that goes. They made me a pretty good offer that was hard to walk away from. And took away a lot of the risk, quite frankly. A big part about starting is risk. Yep. I was willing to take a lot more risk than Mrs. Stewart was, who wants to know that I'm going to get a paycheck on the 1st and the 15th, and it's going to cover down on our expenses. And I'm going, yeah, but take the risk.
I mean, I just appreciate this story because it's, I think, the experience of a lot of folks, obviously not three-star retired Marine Corps generals, but a lot of transitioning military are, entrepreneurship leads to job opportunities. I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, but it happens, I think, regularly. You get out there, you start something and your network's activated, and now there's opportunities coming at you. And that's a lot of progress. And obviously just, the duration of about a year. We do have some questions coming in. I want to ask one, and then I'm going to go to some of the questions in the chat, but are there leadership skills that you're finding now that you're in the civilian sector and as an entrepreneur or working for another company? Are there leadership skills that you're having to learn differently or leave behind? Or are there new habits you're having to embrace and ones that you're having to leave behind, besides not getting in the back of the Suburban hoping that the thing starts? What are you seeing as the differences between?
And this is I either see very positive or very negative. There's some organization where deadlines are really important. Meeting start times are important. If it's a 1-hour meeting, it ends in 1 hour. You don't just assume. And there are organizations where deadlines mean nothing. So how do you adjust to, the CEO says, let's set up a meeting, and you expect someone to get on it like they do in the military. They're working it that afternoon. They got a meeting set up. Or 3 weeks later, you're writing a note going, I thought the CEO said to set up a meeting. Oh, yeah, I'm getting to that. Just having the level of precision is different. People all want the same thing, though, in general. They want to create an environment where their organization and their people are successful. And I can't tell you how many times since I've joined this organization, folks have said, help me with my leadership and management skills. I know I've got some shortfalls. How can you, based on your experience, help me with leadership and management? And they are different, and folks recognize that they're different. I've got one person who will not hire anybody who is not basically a replica of that person. And just go, okay, you can have what looks like a diverse environment, but if they all think like you, then you just have different colors of you. And trying to convince this individual that, yeah, you are a wonderful person, but you are a purple unicorn.
Yeah.
And if the only other folks you're going to hire are purple unicorns, then you really won't have diversity of thought and idea. You'll just have people who reinforce the purple unicorn vision. But the biggest thing is, and I use this advisedly, is just the accountability. There's some organization where folks are just not accountable. And then the ones who are really good, have really strong accountability particularly across their leadership team.
So now that you're on the civilian side and you've got coming into a platform on the civilian side, both with some of what you've published, but also from the leadership position you'll be in, what do you think good looks like for an organization around diversity, equity, and inclusion? What's the insight you give to people that want to do the right thing, but are sort of struggling, and how?
The first thing I ask people to do is just think about, can you write a culture statement? Can you write, what are the things that you want your organization to be 5-10 years culturally? And you ask people, okay, everybody says culture is important, culture is important. Okay, tell me what you mean by culture. And I've already seen this where people, I want to acquire this company because their culture is like ours. They go, okay, tell me what that means, and they can't. So the diversity really goes to what you want as a culture that your organization should be, as opposed to I need 6 of those so I'm diverse, and 3 of those so I'm diverse, and then the really important part, and this is a part that I'm really emphasizing these days, is inclusion means that as you make, so I could say from a diversity standpoint, I need 3 women, I need 4 Asians, I need 3 African Americans, and I can go out and recruit those. But when you put them in the room together as a team, do they feel comfortable in sharing their insights? Do they feel comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations? Do they feel comfortable with conflict? Because sometimes in a leadership group, you got to really have that constructive conflict from which comes the right solution. And so if you can't, and this is really the hard part, how does the leader create that environment? And that means, among things, the leaders got to learn to shut up. Be more Socratic and kind of throw it out there, and then shut the hell up. And and oftentimes that will be really uncomfortable the first time, because no one wants to be the first one out there, because they're going to get shot in the head. Now, how does the leader at that point go, I really don't agree with that, but let's explore that. Let's talk about this as a team. And far too often leaders are they've already got their mind made up. They're in many cases looking for reinforcement, and the leaders got to set the tone, set the ego aside, I've got the answer, accept that you may not be the smartest person in the room, create that tension, and then make a decision after you had that constructive tension and that, because most of the time, all folks want to know is they had their say. They had an opportunity to say that, hey boss, I don't know if you thought about this. Don't shoot them in the head. Listen to them. See if anybody else has. Now, the one thing I tell my team, we'll have this discussion. We won't have it forever. But my expectation is when I make a decision, I've made a decision. And you've had your opportunity to have your say. You will not open this door and then do the passive-aggressive bit of undermining the decision. And that's one of the things I found a lot of times in government is, folks, yes, boss, you're tall and good-looking. That's a great decision. and were completely unsupportive and walked out the door and undermined the decision. I left the team always with, I'm all about execution once I make a decision. Either go out there and execute because you've had your say and I've made a decision. It's not the time to debate the decision. You've had that. So let's execute, or I will execute you, your choice. And everybody needs to know that they're accountable as a leadership team. Have your say, you create the environment where they have their say, and then once the decision is made, everybody lines up and executes that decision. No passive aggressive nonsense. They go back to their work center and say, we had our say, this is what the boss, this is what we're gonna do as a team, let's go do it. I hope that answered,
no, it's great, and I'm taking notes. And I think this idea of being comfortable is just a different standard for what inclusion looks like. I think it's a powerful frame. Someone asked, military spouse asked, you've referenced your wife a few times and the continued role that she's playing in your life. Can you talk a little bit about, military spouses? What's your assessment about what military families can better do to prepare for transition? What are your observations of?
Yeah. I tell you, I'm amazed at what our spouses do and endure, and they are, and I'm not pandering, I really mean this. We were having a conversation earlier today about this very thing. A commandant in the Marine Corps last night went to Dover Air Force Base to receive the bodies of the Marines who died out in the accident recently. And the strongest part, he said to me, was how his wife, Donna, endures and interacts with the other spouses and the strength throughout that the women in our lives show. The hardest part for women who, as they transition, and maybe it's not any harder than it is for us, they no longer have that network. When you live on a base or you have a group like that, you've got a network that you can lean on in difficult times or even in the easy times. Probably the thing my wife misses more than anything else is the Bible study group that she had at Bowling Air Force Base that just met once a week, went over the scriptures and bonded, and you lose that sometimes. You lose the connection, and just like we all do, with the team that we had built around us, with the folks that were supportive of us. And then you start realizing that this is, we all talk about what happens when we retire. We get a retirement salary, and we start conjuring up in our mind that it's really going to be, we're going to live anywhere we want at any style. And then you get the first check, and you're going, that was 50%. That's not that. So you kind of have to think about how you augment that income and make it go even a little bit further, or decide that you're going to middle America because that's the only place you can live. So how you balance, and again, part of the challenge my wife was, she wants the certainty. Go work for Booz Allen. I know if you work for Booz Allen, you're going to get a salary. But if you go off and do this entrepreneurial risk thing, you might get a salary this month and nothing next month. So just losing the bond of the team that you're part of is probably the most difficult part. And my wife still feels that to this day. But hang in there. The wives are incredibly resilient, and they find solutions where we never even thought of those solutions.
Yeah, indeed. I want to respect your time, and I know that we're coming up on the end of our time, but I do want to pick up this thread on entrepreneurship. You did something that is still unusual, which is having left and looked at starting your own business. And a lot of folks don't do that coming out of the military, particularly at the flag ranks, and also at the enlisted ranks. So we're down in terms of the rates of entrepreneurship in this country. We're particularly down for people of color. We're down for women. It's about 20% of venture capital dollars that get invested in female-founded businesses, about 1% for Black-founded businesses. How do we change that trajectory? What do we need to do, in your view, to get more people thinking about starting a business, particularly people of color, people that haven't historically started businesses?
Part of this is I haven't found the book that I can go to and read and go, okay, this is how you do it. So organizations like Bunker Labs that can help people think their way through, these are the steps.
Yeah.
These are the minefields. These are the pitfalls. Organizations that can help mentor new entrepreneurs, where they are comfortable knowing that they can turn to someone and say, so S Corp or C Corp, which one works best? Now, I haven't found a manual that does this. So, you know, we set up an S Corp. We started off in C Corp. Our tax accountant, because we got to the point where I was starting to worry about how much taxes I was going to pay. Oh, don't do that. Do an S Corp. Now we got, she couldn't handle all of what we were doing. So we now have a new account going, so why did you do an S Corp anyway? You should have, there's no manual out there. There's no manual that says for a 3-star, you get X dollars an hour or X amount a day. And so you start off going, $200? Oh yeah, great, that's wonderful. The next guy you go, $1,500, and he goes, yeah, that's fine. And you're going, wait a minute, I have no boundaries to what it is I should charge. So how do we create that manual and disseminate it in such a way that people understand the opportunities and the pitfalls? And how do we create a mentoring environment where folks can come to and go, I'm really not sure. And then how we make that, do the strategic communication that allows people to know that these things are out there. And I read in your body language, you must be writing a book or something that,
I got one coming out, Third Shift Entrepreneur. I hope it achieves what you're saying. But it's exactly my thought. And it's that's why we have this organization, is because it turns out that the dumb questions aren't the dumb questions.
Yeah.
The dumb questions are the right questions. They're the smart questions. And so.
You know, we used to say there are no stupid questions, only stupid people who ask questions. But I'm not sure I buy that. You know, one of the great books I read is about Hyman Rickover, who asked a lot of, quote, dumb questions. And Rickover ended up creating the modern nuclear navy and is renowned as a genius. But he's renowned as a genius because what he didn't know, he was willing to go ask somebody. And sometimes we're too proud to ask. But there are no dumb questions there, because I've made enough mistakes, you know, going through my conflicts of interest review now with my new company. And I was very comfortable coming out of the environment that I'd come out of, but a handshake is all that matters. If you and I agree to something, we shake hands on it, off we go, I trust you to do it. Everything on the outside has got to be covered with paper. You need to get a comfortable lawyer that can review the paper before you sign it. You know, they send it over to me. Mario sends me the DocuSign. I just go down and sign it because I trust Mario. But if you're not careful, you can sign up for some things that gives you personal liability. So finding a good attorney that can review documents before you sign it, because a handshake is cool, but there are a lot of folks who like the litigation route in the private sector. Yeah. And many of that is personal litigation. It's not just organizational litigation.
That's right. That's right. Well, sir, this has been outstanding. I appreciate you and your time and your leadership, and the chat's active. I encourage folks to stay engaged with us. We're here to help you start, and starting is what it's all about. And General Stewart, we appreciate your time. Mike Stebbin, I'm going to kick it back over to you to close us out here.
All right, Todd, Iron Mike's going to close it out for us.
Yes, sir. Another Marine to do the job. Although I do appreciate the Rickover shout out. So that's some good naval heritage for you.
There you go. All right, Mike.
On behalf of the Bunker Labs team, sir, it was a pleasure to have you with us today. For our listeners out there, please do us a favor. Please fill out the post-event survey. Let us know what you want to hear next. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our sponsors for this town hall, MetLife. Thank you all. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your week. Be sure to check out Bunker Labs and bunkerlabsonline.org to learn about all the amazing programs we're offering for the military-connected community. Peace.
All right. Thanks, guys. Out here.
Awesome. Thank you, Vince. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.